Indonesia is known as one of the biggest archipelagic countries in the world. Located in Southeastern Asia, Indonesia has become the world's 16th largest country in terms of area. Endowed with a high population and the richest natural resource reserves sucked into its archipelago. Blessings that put Indonesia on the map as Southeast Asia's #1 powerhouse. Indonesia is one of the few countries in the world that could survive the 2008 global crisis with a positive economic growth, 6.1% in 2010 and increasing to 6.5% in 2011. Gross national income per capita steadily increased from $1,922.20 in 2007 to $3,010.11 in 2010 and $3,542.90 in 2011. Economic globalization and a fast-changing business environment triggered Indonesia into increasing its competitiveness through MP3EI, the master plan for acceleration and expansion of the Indonesian economic growth. The MP3EI directive is aimed at implementing the 2005 to 2025 long-term national development plans, envisioning a self-sufficient, advanced, just and prosperous Indonesia for all. To achieve this target goal, 6 economic corridors of Indonesia have been set based on the intrinsic potential and advantages of each region in the country. The 6 economic corridors cover the Sumatra Economic Corridor as center for production and processing of natural resources and as nation's energy reserves. The Java Economic Corridor as driver for the national manufacturing industry and service provision. The Kalimantan Economic Corridor as center for production and processing of national mining and energy reserves. Sulawesi Economic Corridor as a center for production and processing of national agricultural, plantation, fisheries, oil and gas and mining. The Bali Nusa Tenggara Economic Corridor as a gateway for tourism and for national food support. The Papua and Maluku Islands Economic Corridor as a center for development of food, fisheries, energy and national mining. In accordance with the National Medium-Term Development Program (RPJM) of 2010-2014 and to increase the competitiveness of the national industry, the Ministry of Industry has set the mapping guidelines for 35 priority industry clusters. Through the development of clusters included in 22 main economic activities of MP3EI, the Ministry of Industry is expected to become the driving force behind Indonesia's economy from 2025 onwards. The focus of main economic activities related to the Ministry of Industry are crude palm oil-based industry. The growth of palm oil production in Indonesia was 7.8% on average per year. In order to optimize palm oil development, there are potential areas to be developed into downstream palm oil industrial clusters, namely Sei Mangke in North Sumatra, Dumai, Riau, and Malloy in East Kalimantan. The downstream products to be developed include fatty acid, fatty alcohol, glycerin, methyl ether, surfactant, pharmaceutical and cosmetic products, food products, and soap. Rubber-based industry. Indonesia is the second largest producer of natural rubber. The use of natural rubber in Indonesia is dominated by the tire industry, which covers 61% of the total use of rubber in downstream industries, while the remainder gets used for industrial gloves and footwear. The locations for rubber industrial cluster development are Medan, Dumai, and Palembang. Cocoa-based industry. Indonesia is the world's second largest cocoa producer, contributing 18% to the total global market. Domestically, cocoa commodities produce the third largest foreign exchange reserves after palm oil and rubber. Food and beverages industry. The food and beverages industry is a significant contributor to the GDP of Indonesia. This industry absorbs the largest labor force of all manufacturing industries. The industry growth for food and beverage in 2011 was 9.2%, exceeding the initial target of 7.92%. The growth was mainly sustained by the increasing investment made by key industry players throughout the year. Coal mining-based industry. Indonesia is rich in coal, and it is the largest thermal coal exporter in the world. The total resources of coal reserves amount to 104.8 billion tons. Half of that, approximately 52.4 billion tons, are located in Sumatra, with a production capacity of some 200 million tons per year. Indonesia has coal reserves for a long-term period. Nickel-based industry. Indonesia is in the top 5 largest nickel producers. It contributes up to 60% of the world's nickel production. Indonesia's nickel production alone reaches 190,000 tons per year. Indonesia holds 8% of the world nickel reserves, and therefore nickel mining and its downstream processing industry are eligible for further development. Sulawesi has the most advanced nickel production in Indonesia. Oil and gas manufacturing industry. The acceleration strategy for oil and gas development is to increase national oil and gas production to 1 million barrels per day by 2025. Therefore, the fabrication industry and refineries are expected to support oil and gas exploration. Textile industry. Textile is another industry with a high level of employment, currently comprising more than 1.3 million people. As important source of foreign exchange, the textile industry is the only non-oil manufacturing export industry with a positive net export result. Machinery and transportation equipment industry. There is great potential for growth in the equipment and machinery sector. More than 80% of the GDP contribution of this sector comes from the Java Corridor. In the industrial sector for equipment and machinery, the transportation equipment segment is the largest contributor. Some 93% of the revenues from this equipment and machinery sector in Jakarta stem from transportation. Shipbuilding industry. Indonesia is one of the largest maritime countries in the world. The major challenge facing the shipbuilding industry is to increase the national capacity across the country. This is the result of the implementation of cabotage principles, which are considered by some as too early and not in line with the industrial capability to build the ships. On an international scale of production, the main challenge is to increase the role of Indonesia in international shipbuilding. Steel industry. The steel industry plays a strategic role in economic development. As a developing country, Indonesia is making progress towards achieving a more advanced country status. The national demand for steel increases from year to year. Indonesian steel consumption is still considered to be very low. In 2005, it was only 29 kg per capita, compared to an average world consumption of 170 kg per capita. Thus, steel industries in Indonesia need to be further developed. Aluminum industry. In the near future, to support the capturing of added value in the aluminum industry in Indonesia, there is a need for the development of an integrated aluminum industry. In particular, combining aluminum processed industry, aluminum smelter, and other derivatives of aluminum production, as well as downstream aluminum industries. Information and communication technology. ICT has been able to provide a range and choice of services that increasingly facilitates various levels of society to gain access to voice communications, images, and data. Currently, except for Maluku and Papua, all major cities in the country are connected to the fiber optic backbone network. Meanwhile, the ICT market is growing steadily from year to year. The investment climate. Improvement of the investment climate is one of the main agendas in the MP3EI. Therefore, in the short term, improvements of the investment climate will be through debottlenecking, regulations, incentives, and the acceleration of infrastructure development. Fiscal incentives include income tax allowances, tax holidays, proposed reduction of import duties and value-added tax (PPN), while non-fiscal incentives include ease of regulations, licensing and optimum public services from central and local governments. The government of Indonesia encourages private investments in road construction, power plants and other infrastructure developments, and it is ready to support with subsidies and risk sharing. With support of all stakeholders, we hope the industrial sector will make an enhanced contribution to the national development. We invite you to join and embrace the power of Indonesia and facilitate a brighter future for all.